My name is Sonia. I was married to David for 30 years when he was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's disease at the age of 52. He passed away at the age of 58. I was his primary caregiver for a period of about 7 years.
My name is Jack. My wife, Betsy, of 60 years. She died about 3 months ago after a very, very long illness, actually caused by two different things. She had a neuropathy that is very, very rare, and she also had COPD. I've been her caregiver for the last 15 years, but the most intense time is the last 5 years when we were dealing with COPD.
My name is Tom. My wife, Lisa, at the age of 50, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And at the age of 56, she succumbed to the disease. I was her caregiver for roughly about 6 years, and she passed away about a year and a half ago.
My name is Pat. I was a caregiver for my mother, who had Alzheimer's disease, and for my mother-in-law, who had a mixed dementia. They both passed within 3 weeks of each other 3 years ago, and I was their caregiver for roughly 15 years.
The only job I've had over the last 15 years is to take care of Betsy. I didn't have another job. I was retired prior to that, and that was what I was supposed to do with my life during the time she was going downhill. So I did. I was at the hospital with her from anywhere around 10 o'clock in the morning till 7, 8 o'clock at night every day. When she died, it was over. And suddenly I was out of a job. And it was a full-time job, and it was sometimes very difficult, and it was very emotional. But it suddenly was no longer there, and my services were no longer needed. It was a lonely feeling. It was, what do I do now kind of a feeling.
There is a natural sense of loss when the need for our caregiving is over. We face the grief of the death of our loved one, as well as the loss of our purpose and role in life. The aftermath can be a very difficult time that leaves us feeling lost, lonely, and useless.
Landing up in her bedroom, sleeping in her bed, that was the toughest. Because she was downstairs here in her final months. I was upstairs, always had the door open, but more often than not, I'd lay down here on the couch for the night or something or other. And some of the aides that I had coming in here, was telling me, you ought not to do that. She's not going to go anywhere, and you ought not to be on the couch or something, Be up in your room, leave the door open, But there were times that I, would wake up and I go, how did I get in this room, again, because I spent so much time in that room, coming up and down, and that was that was probably the toughest, the reality that she was gone.
Caregiving for me was a total occupation, took all of my time. I actually came across a telephone book that I had used, little address book that I had used at the time, and it was so full of doctor names, nurses, social workers, the VNA, visiting nurses, elder services agencies, hospitals. When he was finally admitted to long-term care, I had the names of 10 nurses, I had volunteer names, the social worker, the list goes on, and that was my world. It wasn't just make some iced tea and sit down and enjoy the afternoon and occupy his time. It was a total occupation, and so the hardest thing was kind of the quiet that ensued after he passed away. the lack of stress, lack of daily planning and worry and phone calls and communications.
Once we got through all of the affairs that have to be attended to after the passings, and right down to the thank you notes and the cleaning out the closets and the distributing all the property, really kind of just sat there and said, what's next? What do we do now? And so many things that we may have been interested in before, like going to a movie, wasn't interested. Having friends over was too much work. Unacknowledged exhaustion, because I know there was a period of time when the TV was on a lot, which we didn't watch television. The television was on quite a bit. We didn't have a lot of conversation, because now I'm just thinking about that. That was something between, particularly my husband and I, that casual conversation. Our conversations had always been about, okay, what's up with Marie? What's up with Mary? Have you been in touch with this one? Have you been in touch with that one? And as an aside, my husband's sister was also very, very ill. And he was the front man for her care needs, although she was in assisted living, but he was the point person for her care needs. Our conversations were about them. And I just realized that. So that art of intimate conversation, and I can remember we went to a restaurant, and no sooner had we sat down for dinner than he brought up his mother. And I said, I'm not having this conversation. We could not get through a meal without talking about one of them.